And this was something that I wanted to do last week, but I just couldn't get to it or whatever. But I want to look at Genesis 37, and we're going to start here. As he's in the pit, okay, they're eating their meal, they're sitting around, they're fellowshipping. So in Genesis 37:25, and I'm gonna read this, and then I'm gonna relate it to another portion of the Bible and another area in the Bible. Genesis 37, verse 25, and it says, "And they sat down to eat a meal. Then they lifted their eyes and looked, and there was, hold on, Sharon, and there was a company of Ishmaelites, right, coming from Gilead with their camels, bearing spice, balm, myrrh, on their way to carry them down to Egypt." Okay, so Judah said, Judah is a brother of Joseph. He said, "What profit is there if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him. He is our brother and our flesh." And the brothers listened. Okay, so where we're at right here, he's in the pit. You've had, Reuben has gotten him from being killed. They were just going to kill him and throw him in the pit. Reuben had said, "Let's not kill him. Let's just put him in the pit," because he's looking to be able to come back and get him out later. So he's in the pit. They're eating a meal. Judah looks up and he sees these Ishmaelites coming down that are heading to Egypt, right? So his first thought is, hey, man, he's gonna put on this pretense that he actually cares about Joseph, or he actually whatever. And he's like, hey, he's our flesh and blood. Let's not kill him. Let's pull him out of this pit and let's sell him to the Ishmaelites. This is a just thing to do. And, then his blood is not on our hands, and let's get rid of him. And then when he goes down there to Egypt, he's going to be a slave and he's going to be away, and we won't have to deal with him. We're going to, get rid of him. Now, so I want to contrast that. What is he looking out for? What is Judah looking out for right there? What are all the brothers looking out for? They're looking out for their own self-interest, right? In our life, and my question is, when these Ishmaelites come down, they're just cruising to go down to Egypt. They're just selling their stuff. They're just pretty innocent doing their thing, right? Reuben looks at them and he looks at them. Look, we can use these guys. Not only can we get rid of Joseph to go down to Egypt, we can get some money out of the situation. We can wash his blood off of our hands, and we won't have to dispose of him. We can just, it can benefit us all the way around. In your life, and we're going to be going over to, it's going to be in John 4, okay? In your life, how do we deal with people, and do we use people? And the question that, and I tried to get away from it, then it came back up to me again. It just kept coming up, so I'm going to deal with it. In our life, do we use people? What I mean by do we use people? Do we look at people like where Judah and Reuben and all of them, they looked at these Ishmaelites, that they can use them to deliver Joseph, to get rid of Joseph, to make a little money off of Joseph? The people that we deal with in our lives as Christians, do we love them and just look at them as people that we love and people that we want to take care of, and people that, because that's what we should be doing as Christians? Or do we look at people in our life on what we can get out of them? Okay, now, and I know that's not something popular, and you say, no, that wouldn't be me. I don't do that. I don't, I'm straight. And do you look at, if, like I say, well, if you make friends with so-and-so, then maybe he can help you with your air conditioner when your air conditioner blows up. Or if I make friends with, whoever, then maybe he can come over and help me when I need something taken care of on my roof, or this builder or a mechanic or whatever. And are we using those people? Because that's what Judah and them, they did to these people. They looked at them as objects that they could get something out of. Now, I know that as we look at things in reality, right, we don't necessarily look at people that, how do I get something out of this person? But in the back of your mind, is your first intention with people that I want to love this person, I want to witness to this person, I want to be a friend to this person, I want to help them? Or is our first instinct on, what can I get from this person? Because that's all our instincts, right? I mean, our instincts are, hey, maybe how can this person, if I'm nice to this person, maybe down the line, they may help me out a little bit, right? And I want to tell you, as a Christian, as the Lord's people, right, that is not what he wants. And we're going over here to John 4. And if this doesn't apply to you, then, then just take it for what it is. But I'm telling you, we need to really think about where our intentions are. where is my heart? Do I reach out just because I love people, just because I want to pray for people, just because I want to help people? Or is it that, hey, what can I get from you? And that's not my full intention, but maybe I can get a little something. As you look at John 4, okay, and we're going to go down here to verse, I guess we'll start at, well, let me give you a little background here. In John 4, there's a Samaritan woman that now are Jews allowed to speak to Samaritan people? Are they supposed to speak to the commoners and the Samaritan people? Or they look at themselves as, you know, we don't deal with you. You're a Gentile, you're a Samaritan, you're unclean, you're somebody that we don't deal with. And so Jesus is here. He goes to the well. He goes to a well and he sees a Samaritan woman. First off, Jesus is not supposed to be speaking to women anyway. They really back then didn't really have a place. They were just kind of, you know, whatever they were. Plus she's a Samaritan, but the Lord goes to her and he speaks to her and he tells her about, hey, you know, I know that you've had 5 husbands, you know, and the one you're living with now is not your husband. And I know your life and I know this. And she says, and he asks her and he's just saying, look, do you know the Lord? And as we looked at in John 4:25, it says, the woman said to him, I know that the Messiah is coming, who is called the Christ. Jesus witnessed to her and asked her if she knew the Lord. And she said she knew the Messiah was coming, who is called Christ. And when he comes, he will bless all things. And it says, Jesus said to her, I who speak to you am he. Okay. So there's nothing that he can gain from this lady. Okay. There's nothing that he can gain from her. He goes to speak to her because he wants to be a witness. We learned in church today that how important is it for us to be a witness to people? Are we going out of our way not to try to get something from somebody, but to witness to them about what the Lord's done in our life, how good God has been in our life, how much he's delivered me, how much he's helped me, how much he's done whatever. Is that where we're at? And this is what the Lord's doing. He's going out of his way. And so his disciples come back, okay, as we move on in John 4, it said, in the meantime, this is John 4:31. In the meantime, his disciples urged him, saying, Rabbi, eat. And he said, I have food to eat, which you do not know. And what is the thing? They said, has anyone brought him anything to eat? Has anybody brought him something to eat? Or what food is he talking about? And down here in verse 34, it says, my food is to do the will of him who sent me and to finish his work. Do you not say, and this is where I want you to think about this, do you not say there are still 4 months and then comes the harvest? He's saying that you guys say that we're in the season, in about 4 months, the harvest is going to come. Okay. So we can go to the fields and get the harvest. And he says, behold, I say to you, lift up your eyes and look at the fields, for they are already white for the harvest. Now compare that to, as what he's talking about is this Samaritan woman who he just witnessed to, and he told her about himself and he told her about who he was, and he was the Christ, and that the only way is through him. She went back to the town and she said, hey, look, guys, there's somebody out here that's saying that he's the Christ. He told me all these things. I want you guys to come and I want you to meet him. I want you to come and I want you to witness him, and I want you to get saved, and I want you to have a relationship with him or whatever. Change that from back in over there where you have Joseph in the well, and they look up and they see this band of people coming and they say, hey man, how can we use these people? Here Jesus says, look, you look up and the fields are white for harvest. What's he talking about with the fields? Because it says that the fields are 4 months until the harvest is already there. He's not talking about the harvest and actually harvesting. He's talking about these people that this lady went to town after he witnessed to her, told her about the Messiah, told her about who he was, told her about what he could do for them. And they said, we want to meet him. And they're all coming, and he says, look up, open your eyes up and look. And all these people are coming towards him. And he says, the harvest is white. It says, for they are already white for harvest. He who reaps receives wages, gathers fruit for eternal life, that both he who sows and he who reaps rejoice together. For in this saying is true, one sows and another reaps. I sent you to reap that which you have not labored. Others have labored, and you have entered into their labors. He's saying, look, these are the people that are coming to us. We need to witness to them, and we need to lead them to the Lord, right? Are we looking to people? And this is how is our heart? You talk about a hard heart, and we get preconditioned to shut our heart down, right? To shut our emotions off and to not let people affect us and not let whatever go on. But the Lord said, look, we need to open our heart up, that we need to look at people, not as something that we can get something out of, not as somebody that can help me, but we need to look at people that they are all people that Christ came and died for. He gave his life for, and he wants us to go out there and be a witness to them. He wants us to speak to them. He wants us to love them. He wants us to show them the way, right? Whoever it is that we make contact with, it doesn't matter if they're poor, if they're black, if they're white, if they're Hispanic, it does not matter who they are. Our job as a Christian is to give them the hope of life, right? To give them the hope of eternal life. It is not our job to judge them and to, because the disciples said, look, whoa, why are you talking to this lady? Why are you witnessing to her? Why, you're not supposed to be doing this. He said, look, my job is to do the will of the Father who sent me. Our job is to do the will of the Father who sent us. Our job is to reach across the lines and reach across to people that are unlovable, and reach across to people that are hurting, and not for anything but to tell them that God loves them, to tell them that there is a better way, to tell them that they can get saved, they can get right, they can have hope, right? That's what we need to do. We need to give people hope, because Lord gives us hope. So anyway, I couldn't get away from that, because I think in my life, even though I don't intend to, you're always thinking in the back of your mind, well, I wonder with this person, well, if this one's doing this, maybe I can get this, or maybe they can help me with this. Or, man, we need to get our focus on, look, what can I do for them? And how much can I love them? And how much can I take care of them? And how much can I help them? Not what can they do for me, right? So you have Joseph in the pit. We're going back to Genesis 37 now, okay? So Joseph's in the pit. They see these Ishmaelites coming. They say, hey, let's pull them up out of that thing. Let's sell them to Egypt. So they pull them up and they sell them to Egypt. And we're going to go back into verse 27, Genesis 37:27. Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites. Let not our hand be upon him. He's our flesh. And it says, so the brothers pulled Joseph up. They lifted him out of the pit, and they sold him to the Ishmaelites. You got to think that they're lifting him up. And he's thinking the whole time that they're lifting him up that, hey, they've changed their mind. Hey, they're going to help me. Hey, they're going to pull me out of here. Hey, they're going to bring me home to the Father. Hey, they're going to, and their whole intention is, look, we're just finding a different way that we can get rid of you, right? So he's pulled up out of the pit, and he sees this band of Ishmaelites, and they sell him for 20 shekels of silver, right? They sell him for 20 shekels, at the same price that the Lord was sold for when he was betrayed. So he's lifted up. He's sold to them. We're going to get on a little bit later on his stories. He's headed down to Egypt. Okay, he's now a slave. He's now sold. He's now out of the brothers' hands. He's headed down to Egypt. So now, what do the brothers do as far as, once you tell, okay, they've now threw him in the pit. They've now pulled him out of the pit. They've now sold him to Egypt, right? Sold him as a slave. He's headed to Egypt. He's out of the way. Now what are they going to do? Reuben comes back. It says in verse 29, Reuben's whole intention, right? He was the older brother. He's the one that's supposed to take care of things. He's the one that got him to be in the pit in the first place and not be killed. So Reuben comes back and he says, hey, man, where's Joseph? And he says in verse 29, Genesis 37:29, then Reuben returned to the pit, and indeed Joseph was not in the pit, right? And he tore his clothes. He returned to his brothers and said, the lad is no more, and where shall I go? He's saying, what am I going to do now? My whole goal was to keep him safe. I was going to pull him out. I was going to somehow bring him back to the Father. Now he's gone. I don't even know where he is. I don't know what's going on with there. So they said in verse 31, so they took Joseph's tunic. Okay. Once you tell one lie, now get this. Once we tell one lie, he's in the pit, right? He's pulled out of the pit. He's sold to Egypt. That starts a whole, just a river of stuff that has to be done to cover up their lie. If they had put him in that pit, they got sense about it and said, wait a minute, man, he's our brother. We love him. Let's pull him out of there. Let's bring him back to the Father. They may have had to reap the consequences of the Father saying, what are you guys doing, man? Where are you at? But no, they went all the way, and they went through with that lie, and they went through with that deception, and they sold him down to Egypt. He is now gone. They've got to deal with that. Okay. When we tell a lie, when we put something out there, or we deceive somebody, or we do whatever it is in our life, right? One act, it says one act leads to another act, right? One deception leads to another deception. When we're doing things, it's much easier. And you tell your kids, right? Don't we tell our kids, Hey, look, just tell me the truth, man. You tell your wife, hey, just tell me the truth. How are you feeling? You can tell whoever it is, just, and we'll deal with the consequences. Just let's stop this thing right here. But what do? As people, we try to cover ourselves up, and I don't want to look bad, and I don't want to. So I'm just going to play this thing on and go, and before you know it, you're in the. I mean, you're further in the hole, and you're further, and you just don't know where to go. So look, and then when it gets to that point, what you're going to see here, which is quite interesting, they said. They took Joseph's tunic. Now I want you to see what they do. This is Genesis 37, and this is verse 31. He's gone, right? They've got his tunic. They don't have Joseph. They're going to go home. The father loves Joseph, right? I mean, he's his chosen son. He's the heir. He's the one of his true love, right? I mean, this is where he's at. It says they took Joseph's tunic, they killed a goat, and dipped the tunic in blood. Okay. They killed the goat and dipped the tunic in blood. Then they sent the tunic of many colors and they brought it to their father. Okay, so let's look at a couple different things right there. They take his tunic. Now they've got to do something at this point, right? They've got to carry on this lie. They've got to stay with it. They kill a goat. They take its blood. They smear it all over Joseph's coat of many colors. Okay. That didn't go far enough that they could have whatever. They could have left it alone and just said, I don't know where Joseph came. They could have told another lie, but no, they're out to, they're going to hurt their father. I don't think that they're necessarily, their intention is to really hurt him that much. But let me tell you the things that they do. And when we do the things that we do, right? When we don't really think things through and we act a certain way, when we say certain things, when we do certain actions, we don't realize the people that we're hurting by doing those, okay? The consequences of what we do are real life consequences. The people are getting hurt, people are gonna be hurt. Whatever it is in your life that you do, I don't know what y'all are doing, I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe you're not doing anything, but the things that we do have consequences to them, right? So they dip this tunic into the blood, they send it, they don't even take it, okay? This is how hard-hearted they are. Their sin, they don't care about the father even to bring the tunic that is covered in blood back. They have it sent by a messenger, right? And they're sending this tunic of blood, and they says they sent it, the tunic of many colors, and they said to the father, we found this. Do you know whether it is your son's tunic or not? Now, how do you think that makes the father feel? All of a sudden, he's thinking, I sent my son out there by himself, right, to go check on these brothers. He didn't really know where he was going. He didn't know what was going on. He went there. Now something has devoured him. Look what he says. He says, and he recognized it. This is Genesis 37, verse 33. It says he recognized it, and he said, this is my son's tunic. And he says, a wild beast has devoured him. Without doubt, Joseph is torn to pieces. And he says, then Jacob tore his clothes, put sackcloth on his waist, and mourned for his son many days. Do we know that the other sons, as you go down in this, and it says, and all the sons and all his daughters arose to comfort him. So then they come to comfort him, right? After they've set up this whole plot and this whole deception and this whole, then they're the ones coming and say, oh, Dad, are you going to be okay? We're sorry what happened. Knowing in their heart that they're the ones that have sent him down to Egypt, knowing in their heart that they're the ones that have deceived him, knowing how much it's hurting the father, but they just don't care, right? They just don't care. And I'm praying that we don't get to the place in our life when somebody's hurt us, because did Joseph hurt them? Yeah, he was telling on them. He was righteous. The father loved them. And he had just hurt them. And so they were like, he's hurt us too much. We're just going to get rid of him. I hope that we don't get to the point in our lives that there's a person, and I don't know who I'm talking to, but there's a person in your life that has hurt you and has done things to you that are unforgivable, and you get to the point where you just disown them and you're done with them. And because remember, have we not all been there? Have I not been there where I've hurt somebody to the point where they should have written me off, and they should have said, you know what, man, I'm done with you, and I'm going to do whatever I can to get rid of you. We need to, before it gets to that point, we need to go to that person, right? We need to go to those people. We need to go to that, and we need to say, look, man, I know that we've had our differences. I know that we've had problems, but I'm going to tell you what, man, the Lord showed me in my life that I'm no good, but he loves me anyway. And I'm going to tell you what, even though we've had our differences, I love you. And I want to reconcile, because if we don't reconcile, then this happens in our life. This happens in our family. Tell me this doesn't happen in your marriages. Tell me this doesn't happen with your kids, where you're done and you're having a relationship. I haven't talked to my, whatever for 20 years because they did this to me back in whatever, and I'm never going to talk to them again. And this is real life stuff, man. We need to think about where we're at, and the Lord forgave us. Let's show some forgiveness. Reach out, whether they receive it or not that's not on us, right? That's on them. We're reaching out and making our point. So it says that they sent it back. Do you know how long? I'm going to tell you two things. How long was it that the father mourned for Joseph? From this one instance that happened that he could not get over it, right? This kept on and kept on. 20 years. The brothers put Joseph through, put Jacob through this, mourning, not getting over it, not being able to move on with his life for 20 years. That's how hard-hearted they were. They saw the mourning of him. They saw the depression of him. They saw this, but they could not come clean. And they let him go through that for 20 years until you're going to see the end of the story. There's always a reason. Now, I want to show you one other thing, which is interesting. There are no coincidence in the Bible, right? We know that. I'm going to look over here. Let's look over at Genesis 27 now, because this is Jacob, who is Joseph's father, who is now mourning, who thinks his son is dead. He was deceived by the blood of the goat that was on the jacket, right, on the coat, the cloak of many colors. Look over here at Genesis 27, and I'm going to tell you things that we do in our life, things that happen in our life. Don't think that they're not going to come back around in some way, shape, or form later on in our life if we don't make right about them, right? So let's check this out, because I think this is pretty interesting right here. Let's look at Genesis 27, and I'm just going to read here in Genesis 27. This is Isaac when he's at the end of his days, right? Isaac is Jacob's father, okay? He's blind, he's dying. Esau, who is Jacob's brother, is supposed to get the blessing, okay? So what Isaac says to him, he says, now I'm old. This is in Genesis 27. And he said, I don't know the days of my death. Now take your weapon. He's talking to Esau, the brother, Jacob's brother. He says, take your weapon, your quiver and your bow, go to the field, hunt game for me, make me savory food such as I love, and bring it to me that I may eat, and my soul may bless you before I die. He's saying Esau, which is Jacob's brother, he's saying, go out there. I want you to kill some food like I like. I want you to bring it back for me. I want you to make it for me, and I'm going to give you the blessing, right? So what happens? You have Rebekah, right? Who is Rebekah? That is his wife. That is Joseph's mother. She is the one that loves Joseph more than all the other ones, which we got into the favoritism. Now Joseph is, loved and whatever. And it says she overhears this conversation, okay? And so what does she say? She says to Jacob, she says, now therefore my son, in verse 8, Genesis 27:8, therefore my son, obey my voice according to what I command you. Go now forth to the flock and bring me from there 2 choice kids of the goat. Bring me 2 goats from the flock, and I will make savory food from them for your father, such as he loves. Then you shall take it to your father. He may eat it, and he may bless you before your death. Was it not that you had Jacob that deceived his father with the blood of the goats, and he got the blessing? Now you have his kids who are deceiving him by the blood of the goat that was on the coat, right? The things that we do in our life, right? And I'm not saying that's necessarily you do this and it's definitely going to come back, but the things that you do in your life, don't be surprised when somebody uses those things against us, when things pop back up in our future, when we have issues that come up, and that's where he's at right there. So he is now deceived. He thinks that Joseph is dead. He's mourning. And you have Joseph that is going down to Egypt. Okay, so that's where we're gonna go from here. Now let's flip over here, and we're gonna I want to read this verse to you, and then we're gonna go back to Genesis 39. Okay, is where we're gonna end up. But Romans 8, and I want to read this to you, and I want you to. This is a well-known verse. This is something that you should think about. Romans 8:28. I'm sure that you all have heard that before. And we know at this point, you have Joseph who was sold, right? You have Jacob who is mourning. You have the brothers who are lying, right? All this stuff, this family dynamics that's going on, everything's falling apart, right? Everything's falling apart. The brothers are, they're living a lie. The father's just in a depression. Joseph is headed down to Egypt, missing his whole life and what he's known and what he's going for. And it says in Romans 8:28, and we know that all things work together for good or for the best to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. What does that mean in our life? Even though these things are going on, okay, even though we look at this and this looks like this is just out of control and it's not nothing good is going to come of that. Let me tell you what, you can look at your life and you can see all kinds of things that are going on in your life, and we can't see the big picture, right? We don't see what's going on in our life. We don't see what the reason, what the purpose is. God has the whole picture, right? The Lord sees the whole picture of our life. We see small clips of our life. We see small instances and we think there's no way that what's going on with me now can be for good. There's no way that this can turn out for good. There's no way. Don't you think this is where they were thinking about? They're like, there's no way that this thing is reconciled. There's no way this is our life and everything's going to be bad from here on out, and I'm going to mourn forever and I'm going to die mourning and I'm never going to see my son. And listen, what it is in your life that's going on right now that you think there is no hope for, whatever it is that you think there's no reason for those that are called according to God's purpose, right? For those that love God, for those that are trying to follow God, there is nothing, let me say it again, there is nothing that goes on in our lives that God is not going to use for good, okay? However, now that good may not be, let me tell you, you get cancer, that doesn't necessarily mean that's good, right? My wife leaves me, that doesn't necessarily mean that's good. My children go on and they live in the world and do whatever, that doesn't, but let me tell you, there's something that the Lord can use that when you deal with somebody else. You know what? I've been through that, and let me tell you, I can encourage you in that, and I can help you in that, and I know what's going on in your life, and let me use that. As long as we allow the Lord to use the things that go on in our life, it can be used for good, okay? And that's where I want you to think, because this is going to be used for good. This is all in God's purpose, all in God's timing, all in God's plan. And whatever it is in our life, it's all in God's purpose, all in God's timing, all in his plan. Everything's in his hand, okay? Let's go over here to Joseph or Genesis 39. And I'm going to just give you a couple different things, because where's he going? Where's Joseph now headed to? Wipe my nose, excuse me. Where's Joseph now headed to? He's headed down to Egypt, okay? What is Egypt? I wrote down a couple things. Now, primarily, and I'm going to give you, Egypt is primarily a land of small villages, okay? But it has the Nile River. Now, what does the Nile River do? The Nile River flows through Egypt. It floods, which allows it to fertilize the crops, gives water to the crops. It allows it to fertilize the livestock and give water to the livestock. That's what the Nile River does down there. So they are prosperous as far as they have food and they have livestock and they have, water back then was everything, right? If you didn't have water, I mean, that was everything. That did your crops, that supplied your livestock, that supplied everything. And that's what they had. That was a big thing. So they had the Nile River that flooded and supplied the crops and the animals, and it made them prosperous. Now listen to this. They had 2,000 gods and goddesses. Plus they had Pharaoh, who was the head. He was like the king over there. 2,000 gods that they worshipped over there. 2,000. Think about that. They focused on preparing for afterlife. They were great builders. They were slave owners. They were warriors. They had big government, a lot of officials. Okay. Now think about Joseph, who is coming from a small town, right? What did his father, when they left Laban, right? And they went to Shechem, if you remember back, when they were in Shechem, the father said to him, he said, look, bring all your idols, bring all your gods, take a shower, change your clothes. We're going to worship God. We're going to worship the true and living God. Joseph is trying to live by that. Now at 17 years old, he's 17 years old, okay? He is moving to Egypt at 17. 2,000 gods, a whole different culture, a whole different thing. how strong of a person do you think that Joseph is, that I worry about how easily, let me ask you this, I can go to the beach, okay, for 2 weeks, right? And I can be out of church, and I can be out of study, and I can be out of doing my thing. How easily is it for me to fall into the world? How easy is it for you guys if you don't listen and you don't study and you don't do right and you're not around the right people? How easy is it for you to fall out and to get back in the world and forget about God and forget? I'm just telling you, that's life, is it not? We got to stay tuned in with that. Joseph, at 17 years old, is now put into a new society that does not know God, that nobody loves God, nobody takes care of God. He's stuck over there at 17. I worry about, and you can think about this, at 17 as your kids go to college, right? What do you worry about with them? That they're going to get indoctrinated, and it doesn't take long, right? That they get a new group of friends, they're going to get indoctrinated. They're going to, at 17 years old, how easy is it for them to be molded and changed? And that's what you got to think about. He is going literally to a new place. And we know from reading up to this point that he was strong. He went out to his brothers, and he called his brothers out. He had dreams from God, and he told them that, hey, you're going to bow to me one day, and I'm following God, and I'm going to do what he tells me to do. And he's got his faith, right? And he's going. We need, and I'll say it again, that we need to have our faith in check every time we leave the house. Does that make sense to you? Every time we leave the house, we are going to be attacked by somebody that is going to challenge our faith. Somebody's going to challenge the way we believe. Somebody's going to question what we're doing. Somebody's going to say something about me that maybe isn't true, and they're going to try to. We have to be prepared. Joseph was following God, and he was prepared, okay? Now, at home, as he's back home, how did they view him? How did his brothers view him back home? I wrote down a couple of things. He was a burden, wasn't he? Did his brothers really care about him? No, he was a burden. That's why he got sold. He was a tattletale, right? He tattled on him. He told on him. He did this. He was a dreamer. He was a troublemaker. That's how he was looked at by his people that were supposed to be family and supposed to be Christians and things like that. As he gets over there into Egypt, we're going to see how they looked at him, because he followed God. And the question is, he had a reputation, which we're going to see. He had a reputation over there in Egypt for loving the Lord. And that made a big difference in his life. What is it? How is my reputation? This is, as I leave the house, as you look at the people you deal with, and I tell my son, I tell my daughter, I say, look, when you leave the house, the way you act, the things you do, they are a direct relation to who I am. And they're a direct relation to what I am. And my relationship, or my reputation, is challenged when you go out there and do something stupid that you shouldn't be doing, right? My question is, when you leave the house, what is your reputation? I want to read this. How is your reputation? How do people see us? Do they say, well, Chad's coming and he's just a jerk and a punk? Listen, man, I screw up all the time, okay? I'm telling you, I've got to go back, and I've got to say I'm sorry, and I've got to back up, and I go to the gym, and I bully people, and I don't mean to, but people say you bully this and you do this and you say this and you you act like this. I don't try to do that, and I've got to go back and try to back up on that, apologize to people. How is our reputation when we leave? I want to read this in 1 Peter. Okay, let's turn over there to 1 Peter, because reputation is everything, right? Who do we serve? Who do we follow? How do people see us? So let's see if I can find 1 Peter here. I'm getting there. 1 Peter, and we're looking at chapter 2, 1 Peter 2 and 11, because he brought his reputation with him. He established his reputation as he was over there in Egypt. 1 Peter 2:11, and it says, beloved, I beg you, this is 1 Peter 2:11, I beg you, as sojourners and pilgrims, abstain from fleshly lusts, which war against the soul. He's saying, look, as people that are following me, abstain from fleshly lusts and things that are going to pull you away from me, right? He says, having your conduct honorable among the Gentiles. What does that mean? That my conduct, the things that I do, the things that I say, the way that I act, when I'm out here with the Gentiles, who are the Gentiles? The Gentiles are the people that are commoners, that are not saved, that are not followers of Christ, that are just ordinary people, right? He says, have your conduct honorable among the Gentiles, that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may, by your good works, which you observe, glorify God in the day of visitation. He's saying, by your conduct, by your reputation, by the things that you say, be a witness to the people in the world. Be a witness to the Gentiles, that when they talk about you and they say things about you and they spread lies about you or they confront you, that your conduct is honorable to God, that they can look at you and say, you know, when I did this to Chad, or when I said this, or when he was in this situation, that he acted in a way that I want to know more about that. How can he act that way if they're talking about him and they're saying stuff about him and they're, because he loves God, and that gives you an opportunity to witness, right? Our goal is to witness. And that was everything about church service today, that we are here to be witnesses. We are here to lift the Lord up. We're here to do his work. Okay. So as Joseph goes over there, he is in Egypt, and we're going to read. Now, Joseph, this is back to Genesis 39. I got to look at the time to make sure, because we're getting down there. We're Genesis 39. It says, now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt. Okay. And Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him down there. Now, who is Potiphar? What is a captain of the guard? You have Joseph, who is a 17-year-old boy, doesn't know Egypt's ways, doesn't know anything about that. He's sold as a slave. You would think that he would be so fired up and mad at this point that he's like, you know what, man, I'm going to go off the rails. The Lord's left me. He's let me go down here, and he's let me be sold as a slave, and I'm done with this. He's sold to Potiphar, who is one of the head authorities in Egypt. Okay, he's over the captain of the guard. He's a head person. Okay, now why would Joseph? What would the plan be that why would God orchestrate it that he is sold to Potiphar? Why would he be sold to Potiphar? Because what does he have to? Potiphar, he has to be acquainted with businesses, right? He has to be acquainted with just the worldly dealings with different people, because his job is going to be that he's going to be a leader, right? God is setting him up to be a leader. What I wrote in here is that and listen to this, what God intends for us, he will qualify us to do it. The path that the Lord intends for us to do, he will qualify us to do it. Does anybody that's on here, do I feel qualified to teach you about the Bible? I do not feel qualified for that. I do not feel like I can do that. The Lord is the one that will qualify you to do what you do. Does anybody feel like they're qualified to go out into the world and be a witness to anybody, that the life that we live, that I'm so perfect that I can witness to you and I can tell you the Lord can help you and you can make it? And does anybody feel qualified for that? Not really. But I'm going to tell you what, God, when he calls you to do something, he is going to put you out there and he's going to qualify you to do it. There's nothing that the Lord calls you to do that he doesn't qualify you to do. And I'm going to look over here, 1 Corinthians 1. And that's important because he is preparing Joseph. He has called him to be a leader. He has called him to lead the people, to rule the people, to make a plan, right? That's what he's called Joseph to do. So he is putting him in Potiphar's house, as Potiphar is one of the higher officials. He is more uppity or whatever. He's qualifying him by meeting different associates, by being in leadership positions, he's preparing him to do what the job is. Whatever it is the Lord wants us to do, he's preparing us to do it by whatever he's having us do now. 1 Corinthians, I'm going to read this, 1 Corinthians 1, because none of us are qualified to do anything. We're not qualified to do anything. I'm telling you that of myself, I really can't do anything. That's just the way it is. 1 Corinthians 1:26, for you see your calling, brethren, right? Whatever the calling is that you see your calling, brethren, that not many wise according to the flesh, nor many mighty, nor many noble are called. Okay, that's saying that God is not calling the ones that are worthy. He's not calling the ones that are uppity. He's not calling the ones that are rich. He's not calling he says he's not calling the ones that are noble and mighty and wise. He is calling, it says, but God has chosen the foolish things of the world to put to shame the wise. What are the foolish things of the world? I am one of the foolish things of the world, right? He is calling the foolish things of the world. He is calling us as people to put to shame the things of the world. And it says this, to shame the things of the wise. What God calls us to do does not make sense to the world. They think we're crazy, right? They think we're nuts. And it says, and God has chosen the weak things of the world to put to shame the things which are mighty, right? That's telling us that even in my weakness, with Christ in me as my strength, I can do mighty things, okay? But in my mightiness of myself, I can't do anything, right? When I am weak, then I am strong, because that is when the Lord can use me and do things through me. When I think that I'm high and mighty and I'm lifting myself up and my ego's up here and I think I'm all that, God's not he can't use that, man. He can use me when I humble myself, right? And I focus on him and say, Lord, what do you want me to do in my life? It says that he used us to put to shame the things which are mighty and the base things of the world and the things which are despised God has chosen, and the things which are not, to bring to nothing the things that are, okay? And he's saying that no flesh should glory in his presence, but of him you are in Christ Jesus, who became for us wisdom from God and righteousness and sanctification or redemption, that it is written, he who glorifies, let him glorify the Lord. What he's saying is that, look, you are called to do something. Don't do it in your own power. Don't do it in your own glory. God will give you the power to do what you need to do. And that's what Joseph is doing. As Joseph is over here in Potiphar's house, he is just following God, right? He is just doing what the Lord has told him to do in the place that he's told him to do it. If I were Joseph, I would have probably given up, right? And said, you know what? Forget this, man. I've had enough of this. It says, but he is down there. He is in Potiphar's house, a captain of the guard, and the Egyptians brought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him down there. That's Genesis 39:1. And it says, now verse 2, the Lord was with Joseph. Now how much does that matter? How much does it matter that the Lord was with Joseph? Let me tell you, if the Lord was not with Joseph, what could he have done? He couldn't have done anything, right? As we are serving God in our life, as we are putting God first in our life, as we're studying and reading and doing, the Lord is with us, right? And as the Lord is with us, what does he do? He gives us power. He gives us ability. He gives us, to do, and he blesses us, right? Let's look over at Philippians 2, and then that's probably about how much time we have. Let's go over to Philippians 2. The Lord was, this over here in Genesis 39, the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man. I'm telling you, we can have, and I get sidetracked, but we can have success in the world, okay? We can be successful, but if we do not have the Lord, right, directing that success, what good does it do us? I'm just asking you, what good does it do us? If I have a $1 million house and I'm out here and I'm living in that thing and I'm driving the nicest car and I've got the nicest clothes and all I'm doing is glorifying myself and all I'm doing is lifting myself up, does that make me successful? That may make me successful in the world's eyes, but does that make me successful in God's eyes? Can I be used? Because I'm telling you, we have, listen to me on this. We are not here for right now, okay? We are here for what? We are eternal creatures. We are here for an eternity, okay? We will live in eternity. The things that we do now, that we do for the Lord, that's going to be stacked up over here. And in that day that he comes and as Christians, he judges our works. We're going to have a pile of stuff over here. And I think I've told you this before, but we're going to have a pile of stuff over here that I've done for God. I'm going to have a pile of stuff over here that I've done for myself and my own glory. And the Lord's going to burn that. And he's going to say, okay, now here is the stuff that you actually did for me. And this is the stuff that's going to carry over into heaven. this is what your blessing is going to come from. It's not from all this stuff and wealth and good and your all this stuff you've accumulated. The stuff that's going to matter, and I'm telling you, the stuff that matters in your life right now is not all the stuff that you have, and not all the wealth that we have, and not all the is that nice? Sure, it's nice. But the things that should matter to us are, what are we going to do for God, right? And I say that it's, you know, because we're in such a materialistic society. We're in such a, you know, where we just want, and it doesn't do us any good. It just causes us more grief and heartache and trouble, right? Philippians 2:12. Philippians 2:12. It says, therefore, 2:12, therefore, my beloved, as you have always obeyed, not in my presence only, but now much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who works in you both to will and do for his good pleasure. Do all things without complaining, without disputing, that you may become blameless and harmless children of God without fault in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, right? Do what you do for the Lord. Live the life that we live for the Lord, not for ourselves, among whom you may shine as lights in the world, holding fast the word of life, so that I may rejoice in the day of Christ, that I have not run in vain or labored in vain. Listen, and we're going to end right here. This is Joseph. He's over there in Potiphar's house. He's a slave in Potiphar's house. He's 17 years old. He's been abandoned by his brothers, right? He's been sold into slavery. He could just say, screw it, I'm done with it. I'm going to just fall into this society where you have 2,000 gods and you have all these idols, and I'm going to do what I'm going to do for me. But what the word tells us is that he did what he did for God, and God was with him. The Lord was with him. The Lord was leading him. In my life, don't waste your time. And I'm just telling you, does that mean you shouldn't provide for your family? No, of course not. Does that mean you shouldn't try to do the best that you can and work as hard as you can? And no, of course not. We need to do that. But if we're only doing that, if we're only worrying about what I can accumulate, what I can get, how much my reputation, I want to be the big dog, I want to be all that. If that's all I'm working towards, you're laboring in vain, because none of that's going to matter, right? I'm telling you, the Lord's coming back soon, right? The Lord, you trust me, look at the world and the things that are going on. I know it's been said for thousands of years, and I mean, the Lord is coming back soon. The things that we're doing, are we doing it for him or are we doing it for ourselves? Joseph's doing it for God. And I'm going to tell you, as we look at Joseph's story, because he did it for the Lord, the way the Lord worked in that and the things that he did in that and the way that he prospered him, we can have prosperity by serving God, right? We can have joy unending. I'm telling you, more so than if I have $1 million in the bank. Trust me on that. You look at all the millionaires, you look at all the people that have all the money and all, they're the ones that are killing themselves. They're the ones that have no hope. They're the ones that are going out doing crazy stuff, trying to fulfill themselves in those things, when it's really God. We have a spot in us that is just the Lord can fill. And that is what that is what fills me, right? So let's look at, we're going to move on through this thing next week. He is now down in Egypt. He is now in Potiphar's house. He is now just trying to figure out what's going to go on, but he is going to serve the Lord. And he's going to follow him faithfully. Next week, like I say, there you go. Next week, I'm doing the Sunday school at the church at 9 o'clock, but we're going to do fellowship and whatever over there through probably 9:15, 9:20. And then you guys can get on at any time, but I'm going to try to run this thing through Zoom so that we can still get on and still do the Bible study. And I'm going to try to do the live Zoom class and the whole deal on that. And so I hope you all get on there. I know it's an earlier time. I know it's a harder time, but I'm telling you, the Lord will bless our efforts, right? And I'm just having faith. I'm probably going to have 2 or 3 people in that Zoom class, right, at the church. But I'm telling you, what we do, we're not doing it for ourselves, right? We're not getting on here and we're not serving, and we're doing it for the Lord, and we're doing it for other people and to lift them up, okay? So let's see what we can do. Let's try to be faithful this week. Let's think about what God's doing in our life, and I'm just telling you, serve him, because there's no other way, man. Serving the world doesn't get us anywhere. Are there any comments before we end? I appreciate your time. I really, really do, man. There's Sharon popping back on. I don't know if she has something to say or not. Nope. Any comments from anybody? before we close? You guys are
I'm
quiet.
so glad you're going to be teaching Sunday school there, Chad.